The following recording is a production of Kickin' Out at 2 in conjunction with the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network and is intended for private use only. For more information, head on over to facebook.com/Kickin' Out at 2 or our Twitter handle @Kickin' Out 2, along with searching Retromania with a W on any and all podcast platforms available to listen to archive shows such as this and all the great content of the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network. Evergreen content at your fingertips anytime at your listening pleasure. And with that being said, we thank you for listening and hope you enjoy the show. Summer is almost over, but we are back here for the nostalgic walk down the aisle of wrestling memory lane. This is Kicking Out at 2. I'm Dave Rosenbluth, and hope everyone's summer has been a fun one, been exciting, been enjoyable. Hope you've been out there enjoying the weather, going to the beach or the lake or whatever you do to enjoy your outdoor activities in the summer. Hope you all enjoyed it with your friends, family, loved ones, whomever. I know I did. We're back, and I've been trying to figure out with my schedule. I've been on quite a few vacations this summer. Very fortunate and blessed to be able to have the time off that I did to spend with my wife and my nieces and my family, and so I was trying to find the right time to come back and bring some content to the table because it's been a while. Last time we recorded, Dennis and I had watched the SummerSlam Boiler Room Brawl with Mankind and The Undertaker from 1996, just a few weeks shy of the 30th anniversary. And so I was trying to look at some historical factors and moments that I can touch upon. But, what really stood out to me that I wanted to share with all of you today is what I've been seeing on Twitter lately. Some of you call it X. I still call it Twitter. Scrolling through and just finding some good stuff and some not so good stuff that I wanted to share with all of you. So before I do all that, head on over to Retromania on Podbean by searching Retromania with a W. You'll find this show and all the great content from the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network. I swear, Kobe Naito one day will put on a show, and I won't be the only one contributing to this collaboration, if you will. And hopefully he's got some stuff down the pike. And if you're listening, Kobe, I'm just busting your chops, so don't take it personal. Don't slide in my DMs and be like, hey, man, what was that all about? No, dude, I'm just busting chops. But you can find this show as well as other great content like Marking Out the Days, Weekend Warriors, Gaijin Wrestling Radio, Origins of Attitude, Hulkamania is Dead, Cool Truth with AC, another contributor at one point on the Retromania train. I don't know where he is. I know where he is, but I don't know where his podcast is. But you can find all that over there on Retromania with a W or on any other podcast platform available by searching Retromania. So check us out over there, as well as on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/Kicking Out at 2. Not as active this summer as I mentioned. I've been very busy, but give us a follow over there. Do pay-per-view predictions, just random, nostalgic wrestling thoughts. I even talk about some current stuff as well as our Twitter handle @KickinOut2, KICKNOUT, and the number 2. You can find us over there as well. A little more active there. Don't have the blue check mark. Not going to pay the $8 to try to win a popularity contest, but give us a follow over there, and hopefully we can entertain you in 140 characters or less. So there you have it. All of us there. Facebook, Twitter, Retromania, Podbean, any podcast platform available. Cheap plugs out of the way. Let's get into what I've been doing on Twitter, scrolling through in this last week or so. Today's date is Monday, August the 24th, 2026. This show will probably drop later this evening or early tomorrow. Not sure yet. But anyhow, just when it comes to Twitter, everyone's got their own way of handling things, and I don't really take a whole lot of what people say seriously on there. It's just a form of entertainment for me. I'll post stuff if people like it and share it and want to discuss, great. But I'm not getting bent out of shape over opinions in wrestling. And the first thing I want to discuss and share is, and I hate to do this, but this is just something that really stuck out to me this past week as I was scrolling through Twitter. When it comes to the audience's displeasure for, or fans' displeasure for,
their favorites or their guys not being used enough or used correctly. You see a lot of that talk when it comes to WWE. Ilya Dragunov just recently, let his contract lapse, and therefore he's no longer with WWE anymore. He went from being a regular on SmackDown every week, being a part of the U.S. title scene, to pretty much being phased out, and you didn't really hear from him again. I believe the last time he was on television was a part of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal the night before WrestleMania Saturday, and that was the last time we saw him on television. I'm not saying he was going to be a world-class superstar, but he was someone that brought some kind of different energy to the presentation, and I thought that was something that would help create longevity for him. Maybe a move to Raw, maybe going to AAA, seeing that kind of style mix with the luchador style. I thought that there was an opportunity for him to really grow as a performer. Guys like Carmelo Hayes, who's kind of been in and out, just had a U.S. title match recently against Baron Corbin and lost. Johnny Gargano, who seems to be in a creative funk, if you will, with the whole planking on the Anvil case and in this depression because he lost his tag team partner and he lost some matches, and they kind of been sticking him with Sami Zayn for a little bit. A lot of these guys just kind of be either not being used or just kind of like in a lull. And so fans have expressed their displeasure regarding that, and rightfully so. I understand that. But then those same fans, and I hate to be tribalistic, but they're AEW fans, will go into the witness protection program when all 742 members of their roster aren't used properly, and there's no remarks, there's no comments, there's no acknowledgement, if you will. And in particular, I'm talking about the Motor City Machine Guns. They just recently signed with AEW. They made a couple appearances on AEW programming, and they're not anywhere to be found. There's no match involving them at the upcoming All In pay-per-view this weekend. There hasn't been any television presence from them in the tag team scene. I mean, maybe they're waiting to use them more following All In because they've already got their creative plans locked in. But where's the outrage, huh? Where's the outrage from the AEW fan base when those guys are nowhere to be found? And there should be a lot more selective outrage, if you will, when it comes to the use of talents, because there's so much talent on Tony Khan's roster between AEW. He's got, Dynamite, Collision. He's got the Ring of Honor show. I couldn't tell you how many guys are under contract. You'd have to ask someone like a Dave Meltzer or Brian Alvarez that, because they follow AEW more than I do. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like there's so much, and these guys are just. It feels like a guy will come in, he'll debut, or he'll return, he'll get used for a couple of months, and then he'll just kind of fade away into obscurity. And it feels like we're back in that tribalism kind of war, if you will. I hate to use that term, but struggle, conflict between both companies where they sign talent so that the other one doesn't, and then they might use them for a little bit, and then they don't know what to do with them, or they don't have any plans for them. Kind of like what WWE did within the last year, signing Aleister Black and not having anything for him. Not a whole lot. I mean, he had that stuff with Damian Priest, but that was about it. He was there for a year, and then boom, he was gone. I thought, all right, they had a chance to right their wrong with him from a few years ago, and they didn't do it. And it looks to be that in the next few months we could see some talent leaving both WWE and AEW. There's been rumors out there that there's some contracts that are going to lapse. On the WWE side, I've heard Bayley might not be returning. There's an offer allegedly, but she might not be returning. Carmelo Hayes is another one that's rumored. I believe Damian Priest is rumored as well, which surprised me about Priest because they just recently kind of repackaged Priest. and put him on the AAA program, and it got a pretty strong reaction. So I thought, okay, like AAA is going to be the place where like some of these guys go down there and they like reinvent themselves, or they try something different to their presentation and then bring it back up to the main roster without having to explore the independent scene. And that's what they kind of did with Priest. Now, these are all just rumors. Who knows? WWE may decide, like, all right, I'm going to keep, Priest, and we'll keep Mello, and we'll do X, Y, and Z with them. As far as the AEW talent goes, I don't know who's rumored to be leaving, whose contract is rumored to be up, but my whole point of this topic is that you can't just pin the blame from a creative aspect on the WWE, okay? AEW has a lot of talent that they don't use or don't use. I mean, Britt Baker's been on the sidelines for 2.5 years. Sammy Guevara has kind of been nowhere to be found. So, I mean, both companies have an overwhelming amount of talent that they don't use. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I guess it's a good thing in the sense that if you need someone to, fill in a slot, you got plenty to choose from. But at the same time, if you're just paying money to these guys and girls to sit at home and do nothing, then you're just wasting dollars. And in an economy where everything's tight these days, I'm not a millionaire and don't have a millionaire's checkbook, but I mean, come on. Like, you would think that would be a factor as to why not to keep so much talent. But again, that's why I'm on the other side of the railing, and they do the performing on television. So it's just my opinion, but I just think it's a little silly that people get so worked up and then they use the term buried. Oh, this guy got buried because he hasn't been on TV, or he lost and he got buried. Like no, like if he's on TV, he's not buried, in my opinion. Okay, he or she. But I'm so tired of hearing these terms being used. You got guys like JD from New York, who's got a very strong following in the podcast world, and I've seen some of his stuff. And well, I there's things I agree with, and there's things I don't agree with him. He does the little man angry Napoleon syndrome shtick very well, and it gets people to click on his views on YouTube and check out his show, and that works for him. Wants to be just like everybody else, angry wrestling fan. But the terms, let's just come on, let's be serious, okay? Let's be honest. Like, for instance, Matt Cardona recently wrestled Gunther on television, impromptu match as he was coming to the aid of his wife, Chelsea Green, and he got in Gunther's face. They got physical. It turned into a match, and Gunther beat him clean, and everyone on the internet's like, oh, they buried Cardona. This is what he came back for. Might as well go back to selling action figures and just like stupid stuff. Like most of you, myself included, don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So just leave that, leave all that to the professionals, because I understand the frustration for fans that like a certain individual, want to see more out of them, or want to see them involved in something, or just want to see them on TV. I get it. I understand that frustration. But then to like throw the term out like buried and all this other stuff, and Triple H is doing it on purpose. He doesn't like LA Knight, and it's just like shut the fuck up. Like, none of us know what you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just shut the fuck up, dude. Seriously. Something else I scrolled through Twitter, saw scrolling through Twitter the other day, was the 6-year anniversary of Roman Reigns' heel turn when he returned at SummerSlam in 2020 in the Thunderdome during the COVID era. That was the catalyst and the pivotal moment in his career where it was like, shit or get off the pot. You got to do something if you want to, be a big deal in this business, and that was the moment that did it. Coming back a little more aggressive, not as cookie cutter, and then eventually a few days later leading to the formation with Paul Heyman, which would then start the big era of the Bloodline as the tribal chief with his wise man, Jimmy and Jay, and eventually Sammy and Solo and all the great stuff that they produced. I want to talk a little bit about the most recent hot take on Roman from Conrad Thompson. Someone who had influenced his format, had kind of influenced me to do the nostalgic wrestling of yesteryear for this podcast. And so he had a pretty hot take recently where he called Roman Reigns the most overrated main eventer in the history of wrestling. My first thought was, someone needs some listens and some views on the podcast. And as much as I love Conrad, I'm gonna respectfully disagree. I think if you were to say, if there was no such thing as the tribal chief character, or if there was no such thing as the bloodline, if it was just Roman Reigns as the big dog and they were still kind of pushing him down our throats, all right, then yeah, absolutely, I would agree, 100% overrated, because I don't think that he's, in that presentation, that he was a main eventer. He was a good performer. He had great matches with guys. There's plenty of matches with Roman Reigns as the big dog that were great. But the body of his work, that's not going to be the body of his work that people remember. They're going to remember what he did as the tribal chief leading the bloodline. And what he was able to, what his character and that story arc was able to do for others around him, I think is what really opposes the overrated critique. And he was able to take a story with Sami Zayn, who was a comedy character, and make it serious and really elevate Zayn to that main event level. He was able to take his cousin Jay and the story arc with Jay and their trials and tribulations together in the bloodline, and helped catapult and launch Jay into a single star in WWE. Okay? I mean, even currently now, even though he's kind of scaled back a little bit and gone back into the tag team scene, Jay still gets a strong reaction. I mean, the current bloodline arc, and I'm not going to get too crazy into it, you really can't tell who's good and who's bad in it. It sounds like the Roman Reigns character is trying to right the wrongs from the previous version of the bloodline by trying to do things the right way. However, he's kind of slowly crept back into that old version of himself. And so Jay this time isn't the punching bag that he was in the group previously, where Roman was the hardest on him. Jay, like I said, you can't really tell who's good or who's bad, but he gets strong reactions. Everyone yeets. They still sell the sunglasses, T-shirts. I mean, he's still a big merch mover from what I've read. And so to do all that, I mean, even like guys like Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens was elevated to a certain level by being involved with Roman Reigns on television. The stuff with Cody, WrestleMania 39 and 40. I mean, it was a huge deal, and I don't think Cody's win as champion would have been as important had he beaten somebody else. But because he had history with Roman, and Roman screwed him the year prior at 39, and then they had the match at 40, you pile on the stuff with The Rock and the Bloodline rules, and they had the Avengers finish at the end when Cena and Undertaker and everybody showed up. I don't think Cody's win would have felt as important had it not been for him to, beating Roman Reigns. If he beat anybody else, sure, it would have been a cool moment, but I don't think it would have been as cool, because not only did Cody finish the story, not only did he follow his dream and do what he's the only person in his family to ever win the WWE championship, but the Cody Rhodes character dethroned Roman Reigns, who was champion for 1,316 days. And you could argue that, yeah, he didn't defend the title every day, and he wasn't on TV all the time, and et cetera, but that's what made Roman's character so special. So for Conrad to say that he was overrated, and it was, it's not, or the love for him is not organic, and it's kind of manufactured, and people are kind of conditioned to believe that he's this superstar. If we were looking at Big Dog Roman Reigns, sure, Connie, I would agree with you. But we're looking at the Tribal Chief, and that's a different story. He's definitely a big star, and he's probably their biggest star currently on the roster. So I have to disagree with you on that one. Now, when it comes to epic transformations when it comes to characters and their gimmicks and the transformations that we've seen over the years, Roman Reigns is probably one of the very few that has been successful long term. Like I said, he went from being the big dog to the tribal chief. And over time, the tribal chief grew and evolved, and he's the OTC. And, there's so many different variations of him now that the transformation worked. And there's other epic transformations when it comes to character overhauls over the years that, really stick out with me. One being Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan went from, all-American hero, apple pie and Coca-Cola and, shaking hands and kissing babies to, the dirtiest of them all as the leader of the NWO as Hollywood Hogan. And that helped add longevity to his character because at the time his character was starting to grow stale. People were tired of the red and yellow. People were tired of the all-American apple pie good guy. And so when he formed the New World Order with Hall and Nash at Bash at the Beach 1996, over 30 years ago, that added longevity to his career with Hollywood Hogan, and he had a new set of, a fresh audience and new set of opponents to work with and things like that. And so, I mean, that to me was a successful transformation. Another one that a lot of people don't consider it successful. I do, because he was such a great talent that he made it work and made you believe. And that was when Undertaker went from the dark side to the American Badass, the motorcyclist. At first, I didn't really buy into it. And I was like, well, this guy went from, shooting fire out of his hands and flames and the ring posts and lightning bolts and all the smoke and mirrors and the gaga to now he's just like everybody else except he rides a motorcycle and he's 6'10". It took me a little bit to get into, but I will say, for the 3 years that the character was present on television, he was involved in some really good stuff. I mean, the stuff he did with, even the stuff, some of the stuff he did with Kane was pretty good. A run with, tag team championship, run with Kane as well. The stuff he did with Brock Lesnar, Ric Flair, just to name a few, as the American Badass, as Big Evil. There was this, at least to me, how I saw it on television. They humanized The Undertaker by giving him that biker persona, but you always knew that there's a chance that he could go back to that dark side and be that devil that everyone knew and loved. And eventually he would. And then there was another reincarnation of the dead man, The Undertaker, that lasted from 2004 to close to 2020, right during COVID. So I would consider that to be another epic transformation in characters. JBL's another one too. JBL went from being, he went from being Justin Hawk Bradshaw to Blackjack Bradshaw to the Acolyte Bradshaw to APA Bradshaw to eventually JBL. And even though his run was shorter, it added longevity to his career and put him in that rarefied air, in my opinion, of being one of the top heels in the history of wrestling. The stuff that he was able to do with Eddie Guerrero and the stuff he did with Undertaker and Booker T, and John Cena, Rey Mysterio, the list goes on and on. He had a JBL really stepped up and really made that persona mean something. And it was one of those things where I didn't buy it at first, but then once he had that match with Eddie Guerrero at Judgment Day, I was like, whoa. It's like, all right, they're serious with him, and I can get behind this. This is good. Sting's another one. I mean, he went from bleach blonde, colorful face paint, Surfer Sting, to the brooding, dark, mysterious, silent assassin with the Crow style persona that lasted him all the way till retirement. I mean, he had some occasional deviations from the character when he joined the NWO Wolfpack, which was pretty silly. And then eventually in TNA when he was Joker Sting. So the transformation, once again, added longevity to his character. And obviously with Roman Reigns, 6 years ago, just earlier this week, was the anniversary of that transformation from being the big dog to eventually the tribal chief. And it's lasted and it's been successful, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. All right, let's see what else I saw in the Twitter world. I'm just going to get this one out of the way because, quite frankly, it's disgusting and deplorable, and I need to speak on it because this dude he's a fucking douchebag, and I'm talking about Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful. Just a little over a couple days ago, a tweet came out of a picture that Sean Ross Sapp, or someone screenshotting a picture of Sean Ross Sapp in their DMs, and it says from Sapp, "You're going to think that when I run into you, you freak show. Going to be straight into the pavement when I see you. I'm telling you directly. I remember every weird, creepy, psycho thing you've ever said. I'm going to see you in person one day. You're not going to have anyone to help you. I'm going to tell you to say every single one of those creepy-ass things to my face, and we'll see how many little jokes you make then." And then he posts a picture of which looks like O'Hare Airport in Chicago with the caption, "Guess where I flew into today?" ? He sent this into someone's DMs who he's having issues with. Now, I've had my issues with the man, a couple of times, a couple of run-ins on Twitter, and I'm probably very low under the radar because I don't really waste my time. I've shared my piece regarding him and regarding my differences and how he conducts himself, and he didn't like that, and he, made remarks towards me, and he blocked me, and we're talking about a sick person here. This is a guy who claims to be a journalist in professional wrestling, and this is what he does. Now, regardless of, I don't know the history behind him and this other guy that he's DMing, but this guy made it public to let people know that Sean Ross Sapp's a fucking creep. He's an asshole, and he needs serious help. If this is the lengths you go to as a journalist, if you claim to be a journalist in the wrestling business, which it's funny, there was some people in the thread in the comments that said, well, he may be a journalist, but he's not in the wrestling business. Which is a very good point because he's not. He writes about wrestling. He shares his opinion about wrestling. I don't even want to say he reports, but he provides content, whether it's true or not, about the inner workings of the wrestling industry. And sometimes it's true, and a lot of times it's not. And when people challenge him on his theories or his opinions or his reporting, he takes it to a whole nother level. And to be quite honest with you, this is the type of person that, I'm not big on the whole cancel culture thing. Okay, I'm really not. I think it's silly, and I'm not a big fan of it. But this is one guy that, if you canceled him and he hit rock bottom and had to disappear and do something else with his life that didn't revolve around being a public figure online on social media, I'd be perfectly fine with that. Because the man, I've seen things that he's done things to me personally, or said things to me personally, I should say, that have just been out of line and disrespectful. And the things that he can't accept someone's opinion that differs from him. So therefore he challenges you, and he takes it overboard with the disrespect. I've seen videos of him get into damn near physical altercations at wrestling conventions with other people that have had issues with him. There's a wrestling content creator named Bill Batty, I believe his name is, who was associated at one point, I think, with Conan's Keeping It 100 podcast, and Sapp got into a confrontation with him at some sort of convention. I don't know if it was a WrestleCon or whatever, and got right in his face and damn near looked like he was going to physically assault him. And when I pointed that out during my exchange with Sapp, flat out denied it and asked me to show the proof. And, I couldn't find the video, but I'd seen it. And I have no reason to lie. I don't gain anything from it. But this is a man who's just sick and needs a lot of help. And like I said, if there are people out there that don't condone his actions and his conduct, then by all means find a way to cancel him, because this guy has no business being in the wrestling space. He makes it, just like a lot of weirdo, creepy wrestling fans, he makes it embarrassing to be a wrestling fan. He's a fan at the end of the day. That's why he got into this. Okay? I would imagine that's why. And for him to conduct himself this way is just, it's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. To take a picture, to fly into somewhere and take a picture implying that you are within the general vicinity of someone that you dislike, and then you send it to that person and then make threatening statements and imply physical harm. Like, I hope this person reached out to the authorities. I hope this person reached out to, the Fightful website, and if they have an HR, reached out to their HR and shared this with them, because this dude is just out of fucking control. I mean, there's been a few occasions on Twitter where his name has come up in conversations, and I've engaged in the conversations, and all I've done is shared my experience with him. And he screen grabs those conversations and then tries to throw it in your face at a later date that you that you obsess over him. And all I did was share my experience dealing with him in that forum. That's all I did. He said something. I disagreed with it. He didn't like it. I didn't care. He blocked me. I still didn't care. That's all I did. I shared that. Well, the guy must have some sort of notifications on his Twitter that anyone that mentions his name comes up in his notifications, because he found something that was like 3 or 4 years old. Excuse me. He found a conversation that was 3 or 4 years old of me detailing the interaction I had with him. Then he called me a liar and a psycho and a weirdo and a creep and I'm a stalker and all this other stuff. I don't follow the dude. If I was a stalker, I'd follow the dude. I'd climb in his DMs and say weird shit. Okay? This dude is just a fucking asshole. He's a weirdo. He's a creep. He gives wrestling fans a bad name. Not that we don't do that ourselves, but he also contributes to that. And like I said, he's one of those people. He's probably the only person on this earth, with the exception of maybe sex offenders, that deserve to be canceled. If you are in the public eye and you've sexually assaulted someone, you deserve to be canceled. Okay? That's wrestlers included. All right? And he's one of them. I'm not saying he's a sex offender. I'm just saying he deserves to be canceled. But he's probably the one. It's just deplorable. I mean, hopefully, I haven't seen much from him online since that came out. So I wonder if he's kind of scaled back his tweets a little bit. I don't follow him. Like I said, I don't really keep up with a whole lot. But I was scrolling through and I saw this and someone posted it. And I was just like, man, what a fucking loser. What a fucking loser he is. So, if you ever get into a verbal altercation with Mr. Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful, excuse me, you better not tell him where you live, because he might fly into your town and take a picture and send it to you and then threaten physical harm. So, and if he were to ever do that to me, I'd pray to God he'd come knocking on my front door, because it's not me he'd have to deal with, okay? I mean, it would be me, but if he were to get a hair across my wife's ass, whoo, buddy, I'd be the least of his problems. I'll just say that. All right. Let's see what else I saw scrolling through the Twitter. There's an account on Twitter called On This Day in WWE History, and they post like videos and clips of moments from, marking anniversaries of, whatever, on pay-per-views, matches, Raw, Nitro, Thunder, SmackDown, whatever. ECW stuff, you name it. And so there was a video of a promo from the August 19th, 1996 edition of WCW Monday Nitro between Sting and Lex Luger and the Four Horsemen. It was in the ring. And what I liked about the reason why I wanted to share this was because, we just reached the 30th anniversary of the Hulk Hogan heel turn from Bash at the Beach that would form the New World Order. And it would, cause, a whirlwind on WCW programming. I mean, I just got in today the Bash at the Beach Mattel 3-pack with Hogan, Hall, and Nash that comes with like the little accessories of the garbage in the ring. I put it in my my display case. Really cool set, by the way. Anyhow, the promo, okay? This was one of the, and I don't remember this, so this was kind of neat to go back and watch this, okay? But this was building towards War Games. The NWO had been around for a little over a month, and they've been wreaking havoc every week. The angle at the Disney Nitro when they beat all the guys up backstage, the takeovers, when they come into the arena and disrupt matches, and it was just something new and different, fresh and cool, and out of this world that you didn't expect to see. And so what made this angle so special early on was like I said, that Disney Nitro where they got beat up backstage by the Outsiders. But this was another one here because Sting and Luger were proposing a partnership with the Horsemen for War Games. Originally, the match was booked to be Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Steve McMichael, and Chris Benoit against the New World Order in a War Games match. But Sting and Luger had their issues with the NWO as well. And this was pre-Crow Sting, okay? In fact, this is what set up the Crow Sting character. And Sting pointing out the obvious history that he has with both Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Luger doing the same thing. Luger being both Luger and Sting being former Horsemen members. And the history that all of them had together. And what was on the line for WCW. They blurred that lines with like the heels and the baby faces kind of uniting as one to try to fight off this outside force known as the NWO and how strong they've been getting. And so Sting proposes that Flair and Arn, instead of teaming with Benoit and McMichael, they move off to the side and it's Sting and Luger. And they go back and forth about why it might be a good idea, might not be a good idea, and the history they all have. But they realize in order for the NWO to be gotten rid of, they need to get the best of the best to do the job. Not disparaging Benoit or McMichael at the time. And to me, that's what just made the angle so special early on, was the blurring of the lines of the heels and the baby faces. And, I watched the promo and I was like, this is what made you question whether this was real or not. You had your moments where, like I said, like the Nitro at Disney when they all got beat up in the backstage area. I remember watching that live as a kid, and my mother walked in the room and was like, is this real? And my mother never watched wrestling, but she saw the ambulances and the fire trucks and all this other stuff, and these guys getting carted. Did like an accident happen? Is what she said. Is this real? Was there like an accident? And when you can get someone who doesn't watch the show to question and wonder, was this legit? Then you've got something special there. And so that moment kind of set things in motion for the War Games, and that's what's prompted Sting and Luger to make the proposition, and they would eventually join up with Flair and Arn against the NWO, and that would create the Crow Sting character in the weeks to follow. But yeah, it's moments like that just really made that NWO angle really, really special. And I came across it and I just watched it and I was like, wow, like that was some pretty good stuff, and it really held its own 30 years later. And last but certainly not least here on the podcast, I wanted to talk about the most recent episode of SmackDown, which was last Friday. The promo between Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton to set up their match at Sunday night's main event in September, just in a couple of weeks. And, excuse me, and at the end, Cody dropped a big mic drop teasing line when he said, "That's not a prediction, that's a spoiler," which is to Randy Orton when he talked about winning the match at Sunday night's main event and killing the Legend Killer. And so the whole internet is kind of in an uproar regarding, is there going to be a possible alliance between Cody Rhodes and Paul Heyman? Now, I don't think it's happening anytime soon. I don't think they're in the stages of getting to that point. I don't think it's really even been discussed. I think it was Cody kind of testing to see, engaging the interest of the audience for some type of alliance or on-screen pairing of sorts. Right now, Paul Heyman's currently in flux, in limbo. His character on television, Brock Lesnar, had retired at SummerSlam after losing to Obafemi, and Heyman is still kind of tied to the vision, if you will, and Braun Breaker in particular, because Breaker is jealous of the attention and popularity that Obafemi has gained, being labeled the future of WWE, and Breaker feels that should be his position, his spot, and he's looking for that endorsement from Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman's not really giving it to him. And so I think when it comes to that, that's going to be a big old swerve. Heyman's going to be aligned with Breaker again. And, Heyman didn't really break up with the Vision, but he kind of let them figure things out on their own before, I think eventually they get back together. Bronson Reed's rumored to be returning soon. And if that's the case, he'll be, aligned with the group. Maybe Bronson Reed will be, it'll just be Heyman and Bronson Reed. Who knows? But regardless, I don't think they have anything planned for Cody and Heyman. However, I wouldn't be against seeing it. Okay? I think it would. I think there would need to be a good reason. Is there some history there? Absolutely. Heyman worked with Cody's father, has a history with Dusty from their time together in WCW, as well as when Dusty worked for Paul Heyman in ECW. And so there's some meat on that bone that can be explored and looked into, but there needs to be something really juicy to make it work. You can't just throw the two of them together. They didn't. That wasn't the case with Heyman and Roman when Roman transitioned from being the big dog to the tribal chief. There was plenty of reason. I mean, Roman was looking for some guidance, and he was looking for someone to be able to handle his affairs. And Heyman was that kind of guy that could, the character could do that. And so I feel like there would have to be some kind of seismic shift in Cody's character. And I know a lot of people out there, a lot of fans want to see him turn heel. And I wouldn't be against that either, okay? I still think he's pretty popular with the kids and the girls and even some of the young males, I think it's the cool thing for people to boo Cody Rhodes because that's what they did with John Cena. But I think there needs to be some kind of seismic shift in Cody's character. I think he needs to kind of fall down a few pegs, and his character does, to then look for something to help him get out of that rut. Maybe Heyman's that one. Maybe Cody forms a group. What I would love to see, and this is crazy, but this is just me really going outside the box here. Well, I wouldn't say outside the box, but this is just the fantasy, the nostalgic wrestling fan in me. I'd love to see Cody revive the Four Horsemen. If WWE were to be able to get the rights, and I believe Arn Anderson actually owns the rights to the Four Horsemen name and the trademark. If they were to get the rights to that or some kind of licensing to that, and Cody could use that to create his own version of the Horsemen, I think that would be pretty cool. Maybe Heyman could be that manager for that group, and Cody finds three other guys that could kind of use the rub or kind of like almost on their way to getting to that upper echelon, if you will. That would be pretty neat. I think that would be a lot of fun. But at the same time, it's also 2026. Let's not hang on to the past, and maybe we'll see Cody, in a group of a different name, the Nightmare Family or something like that. Who knows? Nonetheless, a Cody Heyman alliance. I mean, everyone's going crazy. It's going to happen, and it could be the biggest thing for Cody Rhodes as a character, and maybe it could, but I just think Cody was doing the old let's see how they react to it, and let's see if there's even any legs behind it, anything that could warrant an alliance between the two of them. So yeah, I don't see it happening anytime soon, but you never know. So that is that. And I think that about does it for this episode. On our next episode, hoping to get Dennis back. And when I do, we are going to talk occupational gimmicks in wrestling. Characters with jobs and occupations like a plumber or a garbage man or a dentist or a tax man. We're going to talk those guys, do a countdown, list our top 5, top 10, whatever. We'll figure it out. And hope you all enjoy it. So that being said, it's time to put this one officially down for the 3 count, and we will see you all next time.